Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Michelle Dougherty here over at Lifetime Health and Wellness in Naperville, Illinois, and you are tuning into our hormone webinar, how to balance them naturally, what is going on between puberty to menopause and everywhere in between. So this has been, I love this topic because we intertwine the conversation every single day with our teenagers, our college students, our working moms, our postpartum moms, our women who are trying to get pregnant, everyone in between, people who are having concerns about what the next stage holds. This is for you. And I really hope that you'll take advantage of. We're going to try to make this interactive. I'm going to do my best to answer questions. I'll probably be typing at the end, but also we're going to see what we can do. Many of you had actually submitted questions beforehand, which I totally appreciate because I really wanted to tailor this to you. And our registrations, you guys are covering the whole gamut. So it's one thing if we were all in one group, I would totally hang there, but we're going to be dropping nuggets all throughout the way. So I want to share some hacks, ways that you can help get your body back on track. That's a lot of acts, but in either case, this topic is so important. Many teenagers, especially during this pandemic, have not, maybe don't feel like they have a resource or someone to talk to or to work through things, because the reality is puberty is happening earlier, menopause is happening earlier. People are not able to get pregnant. It's taking just longer and earlier, like everything is off kilter. So I hope that you will get a lot out of this and that you will feel like your questions are answered, but then more importantly, you feel empowered to take some action steps. So I will be sharing some stuff that you can be doing right away, but also how we can help guide you along in your journey. So we're going to start by sharing the screen here. And yes, we will get going. So as I mentioned, we're in Naperville, Illinois, and I know that some of you are not tuning in from this state, but that's okay because the information is still relevant. And going back to just a neat stat is that about 80% of all women, all US women, are going to experience hormonal imbalance at some point, some stage in their lifetime. We go through a lot of different stages, so it only makes sense, and we are going to try to break all of these things down. And these are some of the most common symptoms of hormonal imbalance. There's so much more, but these are the ones that we hear the most about. And I would say probably universally the fatigue and occasional sleep problems, the continuing weight gain or the inability to lose weight. But then we're talking about the time frame, like the 7 to 10 days before our periods to the first few days into our periods, that sometimes those hormonal fluctuations are so big that we just don't even feel like ourselves. That's not okay. We are not meant to go through this life feeling horribly and feeling bad. And many of us have accepted that this is just part of how the cards were dealt, that what is common must be normal. And that couldn't be further from the truth. In a previous video, I basically defined what a hormone is, because this term gets thrown around all the time, but they're just these tiny little messengers that they are secreted from various endocrine glands in your body, the thyroid, the pancreas, the ovaries, just to name a few. We will be touching on the HPA axis. So H and P are your hypothalamus and pituitary. They're both located in the brain, and the adrenal glands, which are located right above the kidneys, so in the midsection area. And we're going to tie that in, how that is responding during puberty to initiate a cycle, when it comes to fertility, when it comes to transitioning to menopause. It has such an important role. And the basic thing is, When you have one part of your hormonal system, one part of your endocrine system that is not activating the cascade properly, it will invariably affect another gland that is secreting a different type of hormone. Because a lot of these hormones is part of the steroid hormone family. So it's the family that functions together and dysfunctions together. So if you think about an orchestra and how all the instruments are supposed to be playing in sync, then you understand how timing is everything. The amount is everything. So when things get thrown off track, the whole symphony, the whole thing just goes awry. And then it's hard to pinpoint where the cause is, where this is all originating from. So first off, as we're creating awareness, it's important to understand where things have come from. And when we eventually get to one of the final stages in our hormonal journey, which is menopause, because of how our society has been, how stressed we have been, we're seeing more and more symptoms now more than ever. And until 2005, one of the most common solutions for hormone problems, whether you were in puberty or done with your menstrual cycle, was hormone replacement therapy. It was a very common recommendation. But the studies that were done, and this was done quite some time ago, but ultimately they had to discontinue these studies because of the increasing risks of heart attacks, breast cancer, strokes, and blood clots, all of these different things. And that's obviously not okay, but it's still surprising when we will have practice members coming in letting us know that they are on synthetic hormones and creams and different things like that to try to regulate. And obviously that can create its own host of problems. It has its own side effects. And then that's why they had done these studies, because they were actually looking for the effects and the benefits. And they found that, oh my goodness, the risks far outweigh the benefits. We need to discontinue this study. And the other thing too is with this 26% increase in breast cancer, a big reason why the study was ended, they had found that the frequency or the incidence of breast cancer was going down when they were backing off on the recommendations of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. So when you look at the big picture and you look at what's at play, we understand that synthetics are not going to work in the same way in our body as actual true hormones do. You can't put a patent on a true hormone. So when you make a synthetic, it's really not acting in the same way. It's a lot more powerful. It's kind of like inducing labor. We're trying to mimic oxytocin by giving Pitocin. And so what they find is, wow, it hurts so much more, when you're induced versus when you're going through labor naturally. And many times we are also seeing partial or complete hysterectomies due to decades of endometriosis, PCOS, heavy bleeding and clotting and all these different things. So, they're trying to do the best they can, but by removing, bits and pieces of our anatomy that were once producing hormones, we are not actually addressing the hormonal imbalance that exists. So it starts to manifest in different ways, creating another host of problems. But there absolutely is a time and place when it comes to medication, when it comes to surgery, absolutely 110%. But that still means that we need to support the system. So we're not going to be getting compensating in other parts of the body. So when you think about why you're tuning in, maybe it's for yourself. Maybe it's for a family member, a daughter. Maybe you are going to be having a baby and you are maybe concerned about what's going to happen postpartum. Wherever you are, if you have more than one symptom going on, a symptom is a signal for you. It is like your engine light, your car engine light. If that sucker comes on, many of us probably are not going to ignore it or apply some duct tape over it so it's just less annoying. We are going to get this thing checked out. because we want our car to continue to operate for us, especially in the winter here in the Chicagoland area. We don't want our cars breaking down. We don't want your bodies breaking down either. So your body deserves the same attention as, your car, any other appliance, what have you. So there's 3 reasons why we are even putting this online webinar. And it's 1, to create awareness about what's going on in your body, because when you have awareness and an understanding, then you have confidence. And when you have confidence, you're going to feel empowered to make the best decision for yourself or a family member, such as your daughter. So this is important. And we know that underlying causes of hormonal imbalance, it's usually due to stress. It could be nutritional deficiencies, or it could be undetected nerve damage. So basically, we're looking at emotional, chemical, physical stressors overall. And many of you maybe not, have heard of Dr. Lee, who was a pioneer in linking hormones and what we're consuming and how they can throw things off track. And when you look at our food supply, when we look at the products that we use, we're getting inundated every single day. Within a week, it's estimated about 80,000 toxic chemicals are entering our system. And as 50% of the population, us women, we're more of the product junkies, so we're putting the creams and the salves and the makeup and all of these things, and your skin is absorbing 60% of anything you apply on it. So when you have an overconsumption of estrogens, you can fall into a condition called estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance, those symptoms, they're basically the same as PMS, premenstrual syndrome. And we know that PMS, when we think of that, we think of more of the emotional PMS, like the irritability, the short fuse, the anger, the rage, the oversensitivity, crying, all of that stuff. And we feel like we have lost control. So when we are looking at estrogen dominance, a lot of that is part of the underlying causes of these very symptomatic outbursts, if you will, from puberty to menopause. It can be a causing factor for fibrocystic or dense breasts, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, or many PCOS. So this is why we also do things such as thermography in our office, which we are doing at the end of next month. I believe it's the last Friday of February that we'll be doing breast thermography, which is going to be able to detect things at earlier stages, because again, our body, we're just coming at, we're being inundated by hormone disruptors every single day. So it's a good idea to just get checked. So, oopsie. One of the questions that we had received was, what are foods to eliminate or foods we should be incorporating into our diet to help with hormonal imbalance? So number 1 is staying away from non-organic meats and dairy. A lot of our produce, again, with supply and demand, they are, our livestock, unfortunately, is injected with hormones to, keep them producing, getting them fatter quicker, producing milk all year long. And then when their udders become infected, then they're given antibiotics to counterbalance that. And so we're getting all of this stuff. Ideally, if we're able to stick with free range eggs, and livestock and grass-fed meats and things of that nature, you're having that excess hormonal disruptor load goes way down. And it's also a key thing when it comes to menopause, eating more plant-based, doing more of a lower animal fat type of diet helps to calm things down when we're having these fluctuations, or when we have a weaning in our production of natural hormones in later stages of life. So that was a good question that did come in. This isn't going to be a webinar on like what's the best diet out there. The biggest thing is finding, you may have to try a few things. You may have to cycle through a few to see how you feel at your best and being able to track and document. You can journal. There are so many different things that we can do. But as far as direct, number one is just making sure that you're minimizing the excess hormones that are entering your system just from the foods that we eat. So I mentioned the HPA axis. So we know that your brain signals to your adrenal glands and signaling to your ovaries, and it's dictating when ovulation happens, whether or not we can get pregnant. Is it a good, safe environment for that? So your adrenal glands are also nicknamed your stress glands. They are about the shape and size of a walnut. They sit right on top of those kidneys, and they're secreting cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all of these different things. And all in all, your adrenal glands will secrete up to 50 different hormones in your body. I just named a few. And they're responsible for things like sleep at night, energy throughout the entire day, our metabolism, our mood and energy, all of the important things. So we really need to take care of these guys. Due to if you are prone to constant upsets or challenges, that means that you're operating up here when our bodies are designed for short-term bursts of stress, that fight or flight response. So it kicks that cortisol in, your pupils dilate, the blood rushes to your arms and legs so you can fight or flee. But if there's not a bear chasing you down, and you're just always stuck up here, you can imagine over time, those adrenal glands, they're going to wear out. They're not going to be there for you when you need them the most. When we transition to menopause, our ovaries and our uterus, like they just don't produce the same amount of hormones because we're not trying to bear children, at age 50 and 60. So then your adrenal glands kick in as your backup system to make progesterone, because when you're cycling, we have our follicles here, we get the surge of estrogen because our hypothalamus and pituitary is signaling for that. And when you get that surge and it's building up the lining to maybe prepare for a baby, the corpus luteum is going to secrete progesterone. And then it's at that point where there's that window where if there is, if the sperm and the egg meet, hopefully we're pregnant. If not, then we get all hormones that just kind of drop down, which signals shedding of the lining. And one of the most common things that we see with our young girls is they have irregular periods, and of course we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace. Your body hasn't done this before, so it's not meant to be like boom every 28 to 32 days, like right off the bat. But if you've been at it for a few years and then you have some months where you maybe bleed for 3 days and then it's 7 days, maybe you skip a month altogether, that there's something off kilter, and that deserves some investigation. But we're also seeing our younger population consuming more caffeine than ever before. Caffeine and sugar further exhaust these glands. So the two things that are going to exhaust your adrenal glands are going to be too much prolonged stress. Because what happens is, if you can follow here, is your adrenal glands, they have to downstream hormones to either go on to make sex hormones, so your progesterone for progestation, pregnancy, or they got to downstream to make cortisol. Without cortisol, we're not alive. We need this hormone, but not in the doses that we're seeing today. And so if you are inundated with too much stress, or you are, kicking those adrenals with all the caffeine and the sugar and the processed foods, your body has no choice but to continue to downstream to make more and more cortisol for your own survival, which means it's not a great environment to get pregnant, which is why it can't happen. DHEA is another hormone. It is housing estrogen reserves. So it is controlling some of that output. And so if you have this gland weakened overall, then it's going to cause more problems. And that becomes handy, especially when we're going through menopause. But so often people are like, hey, why don't I just supplement with the DHEA or supplement with progesterone? The reason for that is a little bit goes a very, very long way. Our hormones are measured in parts per billion and parts per trillion. So it's like taking a pinch of salt and sprinkling it over 10 tons of potato chips. So when we start messing with stuff that we are not equipped to handle or versed in, we may experience some short-term relief, but then it can create problems down the road, which is why we encourage people to get connected also with a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath who goes about testing the right way, goes through things through a more holistic lens to help support you and what you need, not just based on your symptoms, but where you are in life, where your levels are, and so on. So that's something where if that is something that you need, you can always reach out to our office and we can share those resources, because this is what it's about. It takes a village. We have resources. We know many people in the community to help our women navigate through these different stages. So we had already talked about this, that as we age, we need these glands to be as strong as possible because they become our reserves, and that is what we need. So those adrenal glands too, because they secrete cortisol, when they're secreting so much and because of where they're located too, this is how amazingly intuitive your body is. If you are stressed out, right, your body is going to start creating more fat cells, because when cortisol goes up, so does insulin. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. All of your vital organs are in the midsection area. So guess what? There is this barricade of fat, essentially, that is protecting those vital organs from getting damaged from this onslaught of attacking cortisol. So it's there for protection. And it's not until we can, calm that system down and help it reset, can it actually open the doors to weight loss and shed the weight. This past year has proven to be one of the most stressful for society, for the world. And many of us deal with things differently. Many of us saw the silver linings. Many of us went into a depression. It's affected everyone very differently. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, this was too much for me to handle and now I've gained weight, and you can see the vicious cycle that gets played out, right? So please know that our perceptions, our choices, how we manage stress, it all matters. But those adrenal glands, they control your blood sugar in between your meals, and your mood and energy follow your blood sugar. Sleeping habits, if you're spiking cortisol at night because your mind is just racing, guess what? You're not going to be falling asleep. We're going to have more of that insomnia. So super, super important. We've gotten questions about osteoporosis and calcium, and we know that the key is not just, hey, let's just have a couple extra glasses of milk every day. We know one of the best forms of calcium is from your dark leafy green vegetables, and so that is one avenue. But it may shock you to know that it could be contributing to your health problems if all you're doing is just supplementing with calcium. Part of the reason for that is as we get older, we secrete less hydrochloric acid, which is paramount for breaking down calcium so it can get to the bones and the teeth and activate those muscles firing. So if we have less hydrochloric acid, then this excess calcium starts to build up in the bloodstream. If it's in the blood vessels, that could be more of that atherosclerosis. If it's in the kidneys, it could be stones, that type of thing. If it's in the joints, that's arthritis. Like, you don't want excesses of stuff ending up where it doesn't need to end up. But some little facts here is, compared to other countries around the world, we consume the highest amounts of calcium, but we have the highest rates, one of the highest rates of osteoporosis out there. And women in Asian countries consume just a fraction of it. yet they rarely get osteoporosis and the incidence of arthritis like we do here. So no matter how much you consume, it can't be properly absorbed unless it has the help of its BFF, magnesium. Magnesium, if you take nothing else from this as an action item, is making sure we have magnesium. Now, magnesium will naturally get depleted from the body when you overconsume processed foods. When we're more stressed, guess what? We're going to be just grabbing for whatever's in sight. But fighting osteoporosis and preventing heart disease and arthritis, it is related to magnesium. It is kind of it's known as like the chill out mineral. It has so many great uses. It is designed to calm, and it's a vasodilator, so it just opens things up and relaxes them. So this includes not only our our muscles that may be cramping the uterus, like when you're having your period, but the smooth muscles in the colon. Some of us get more constipated when it's that time of the month. So it can be hugely beneficial, even when it comes to headaches, because again, it vasodilates. When it comes to sleep, because it's calming, I usually recommend taking it in the evening. It may help with sleep. It helps with blood pressure. A lot of women will get back pain, lower back pain, because the nerves that innervate the ovaries and the uterus are located in the area right across the middle of your low back. How about that, right? So these are just a short list of what magnesium can help with. And this is one of my favorite slides. I am a fan of dark chocolate, and here's the difference. We're not saying, go pick up a bunch of Hershey Kisses and just have at it, because, Dr. Michelle said it'd probably be a good idea, because that could also backfire too with just the amount of sugar and some of the other gunk that's in it. But getting 70% or higher in the dark chocolate can be very beneficial. And it's been shown to be able to help with symptoms of PMS. And cocoa in chocolate is one of the world's most magnesium-rich foods. And usually the higher the dark chocolate content, you might only need a square or two. Usually when you're doing the milk chocolate stuff, like you're going through like bars of them, right? To just, satiate your cravings. So that is my little plug on some chocolate. My other favorite way to get magnesium is an Epsom salt bath, which comes in handy when you are having a period. Maybe if you are having lower back pain, or if you're having menstrual cramps, the heat from the bath coupled with the magnesium that are inside the Epsom salts, that's all it is. That type of soaking, I recommend a half hour. It's got to be at least 20 minutes. And just having like a mental timeout for yourself and a physical timeout for yourself does wonders. It's probably the one time in the day that you actually had a moment to be still. So take advantage of that, especially in that week leading up to your period and the week of your period. It can be such a great supplemental thing that you have control of doing. We get this question a lot. We take care of a lot of college students and soon to be college students. So if they started off their hormonal menstrual journey with irregular periods, or just heavy bleeding, or just big time emotional PMS, or a lot of acne. That's another thing that we hear a lot is, we went on the pill to be able to get clear skin, and now I can count on when I need to have tampons or pads or whatever it is in my backpack. When we consume, or when we are using oral or injected contraceptives, the way that it suppresses you from ovulating is by suppressing your entire endocrine system. It basically puts it on sleep mode, on standby. And as I mentioned, the pill is often given to regulate the female cycle. So when it prevents ovulation, that means we're not producing progesterone, which means we get shunted into a state of estrogen dominance, which we already talked about. And it dysregulates that HP axis, because now this feedback loop doesn't really need to work, because it's getting it's sourced from somewhere else. So it just takes a step back. And again, it comes in these different forms. There's so many out there. And this is a short list of risk factors and challenges and complications that we hear about. It's been documented in the science and in the literature, but it's a lot. It really is. Some people do well on hormonal oral contraceptives. Some don't do well at all, and we are all so different. So one of the things that I recommend is getting on a good adrenal support if you're going to college and you choose to be on this, because we find that there's nutritional deficiencies in folate, B12, basically B vitamins, magnesium, and zinc. Those are the main ones. And those are all very important for healthy adrenal function. So it makes complete sense, but it's a way to help counterbalance some of the negative effects of this stuff. And the research also shows that when you begin on hormonal contraception, on birth control pills in particular, or the patch or the ring, or those things that give off hormones, before the age of 18, it's been shown to triple the lifetime risk of breast cancer. So I'm very protective of our young girls, and I was in the same boat as well. I got into this work because I was that person. I had hormonal dysregulation. I was always the why person. I wanted to figure it out and see what I could do, instead of just saying, well, this is what you have, and so you're just going to be given what everyone else is given. So that is why I'm so passionate about this topic, because it's hitting us in different ways throughout life. And going through, a few of the hormonal stages already myself, I understand the importance of boosting what you can within your own body, and knowing how to take inventory and knowing how to get support so that you can live your best life, because that's what it's about, is being happy, whether it's in your marriage or being a mom or with friends and family, whatever it is. We deserve to be healthy and happy. We just want to create awareness. There's obviously no judgment here, but just so you know what you're getting into. And going back to our teens and our college students, we know that when hormones are more balanced, it can often help with mood regulation as well, because guess what? The limbic system is our emotional brain, and that's where this cascade of hormones is starting to begin with. So if we're just stuck in that stress mode, it completely shuts off this system from being able to communicate and perceive information effectively. And if we're more stressed, as I mentioned about insulin, you can see there's a different cascade of hormones that get activated. And if your mood and energy follow your blood sugar, and that's completely dysregulated, you've lost the regulation ability, and our mood starts to go down. So we may be more prone to anxiety and depression. So one of the main things that I recommend for both our young boys and girls is to supplement with additional zinc. We know, as we are in the winter season, how important it is just for immune support. It is really important during puberty, because progesterone is very zinc dependent in girls, and testosterone is very zinc dependent in boys. So it's a good idea. It's a good idea. You can also easily Google foods that are higher in zinc, but I think also just supplementing is so important. Vitamin D is another one. So I didn't make a slide on it, but I just wanted to touch real quick on it. So again, we talk about vitamin D with with immune support, but we also know that vitamin D itself, it's more of a precursor hormone. It's more of a steroid hormone than it is a vitamin at all. Being that it's a steroid hormone, it's a precursor to make other hormones, stress, sex, whatever type of hormones. So you need to get levels checked. I always recommend, if you live in an area like we do in the Chicagoland area, then getting your levels checked once in the winter, once in the summer. It's a lot easier to make recommendations on how much you should be taking. And also for you nursing moms, we need that too, because when you have a precursor hormone that is an initiator for other hormones, including for growth and development in your nursing, your babies need that too, and you need it. And we find that when, for example, with nursing, if you are able to nurse or pump, often it kind of calms the abruptness that is the hormonal shift after having a baby. So things like postpartum depression is less with that. So just other food for thought. So when we, as a chiropractor, we look at the nervous system and we're really concerned with function. We know pain is many times why people will seek out a chiropractor. So we have nerves of pain and nerves of function. 90% of your nervous system deals with function, especially the stuff behind the scenes, the autonomic nervous system or the automatic portion. So your heart beating, your stomach secreting acid to break down food, your menstrual cycle, the stuff that we don't have to think about, that is the majority of what your nervous system is doing. It's busy perceiving the environment through our senses, and then it's got to make sense of all that business so that we have the proper output or behavior or result. So there are different parts of the spine that correlate with different glands that secrete hormones and so on. So as a female chiropractor and going through my own journey, myself and Dr. Carey, we're just more sensitive to this when we're looking at the female population that we are working with. And there have been several studies looking at chiropractic care as being an effective form of support when it comes to symptoms of premenstrual syndrome, to include cramping and to include the emotional PMS and to include the regulation of it, because again, it all starts up here. Your brain and nervous system controls your endocrine system. So when we can help shift from full on stress mode to be able to pump the brakes a little bit so we can calm down, your body has a chance to reset. And we know that just like anything in health, the more you nurture it, the better it is. So it's not something that you just, you do for a month and you're like, great. So often we have our teens, they'll sometimes sync their appointments for like the week before their menstrual period because they want to continue to, get the most out of their bodies and productivity too. So just another study here, and this was looking at not only chiropractic care, but even soft tissue work. So massage therapy, acupuncture is another good one, and we have resources for all of this, So one of our practice members, she had shared her story, so you can see a little bit about this. The big thing is what she literally felt like she had A through Z going on and just felt stuck and didn't know what else to do. She had tried some different things that you can see, antidepressants. She just continued to put on weight. Her relationships weren't great, especially with her husband. And once we started just focusing on her and what it would take, her body did some really amazing things in not that long of an amount of time. Her energy shot up. She dropped the 45 pounds, a lot of it in her midsection. She had a healthier, better relationship with her husband. And this cracks me up. That psycho doesn't come out every month anymore. This was, oh my gosh, the poor hubby. They just don't understand. They're not living in our shoes. So when you can see what is possible just from a simple story like this, I mean, we owe it to ourselves to find out, if this could be something in your arsenal to help with calming your hormones and helping them to balance out. But many of you tuning in, again, you're either approaching menopause, you're in it already, maybe you are suffering with PMS or infertility, but you need to fully understand how your body is working so that it can work at its absolute best. And you can't just go after the symptoms. We have to test for it. Now, obviously through our lens in chiropractic, we use scanning technology. We want to look at the integrity of how your nervous system is working, how your nervous system is playing and interplaying with your endocrine system. And if there are areas of disconnect or stuck, stress patterns, how do we unravel that? So likely when we're talking about emotional stress, chemical stress, and hormone disruptors, physical stress. So by the way, by physical stress, I mean whether you are a teenager or older and we are working out too much, like too hard, too much, that is going to be helping or assisting that hormonal cascade to spiral out of control. So it's something that, again, awareness, hopefully got some good answers. And the biggest thing is the 3 T's. So we nickname these thoughts, traumas, toxins for emotional stress, physical stress, chemical stress. Your job is to try to minimize that. So we gave you a couple examples, and our job as chiropractors, so again, as a chiropractor, I need to at least put this out there, is helping your body adapt better to stress. We can't remove it, but the way we do that is through chiropractic care and what those scans show, where your body's living in stress, but also how resilient your body is, what its adaptability quotient is, because that will change too in different phases. Even when we scan our prenatal moms and then we scan them postpartum, I mean, literally it's like 2 different people that we're looking at. And so we need different things in different stages in our life. So I wanted to, let me see here. Let me stop the share and then just basically end it with a couple other tips that, I feel like normally this content usually takes a little more than an hour. So we try to condense it as best we could. We try to cater to who is tuning in and what questions you have. And I know you may have more questions, but we just want to help start the conversation. But 2-3 apps that are really good is the Think Dirty app. That should be easy to remember, but the Think Dirty app is if you are trying to minimize hormone disruptors by, I alluded to like makeup and creams and shampoos and things like that, you can literally scan these things when you go shopping. And it's not to say you need to like, oh my gosh, do like a 180. Start with the things that you use the most, and maybe it's deodorant, maybe it's the shampoo, maybe it's the makeup, different things like that. It certainly took me a while to get there, and it was not an overnight thing. So I would encourage you to do that. There's the Environmental Working Group, and they have a like a skin database. So you can look at everything from like sunscreens and makeup and things like that. That's also an app form. For you women who are still cycling and teenagers, college students, women of childbearing age, there's, oh my gosh, there's so many apps. One is called Clue. So it's a way to track your cycles. It'll check in with you. How are you feeling? So then you can actually start to make out patterns on how you're feeling. And a book that I'm reading right now, it's called Do Less by Kate Northrup. I highly recommend. I'm almost halfway through it, but they talk about like when you understand how your cycles are and how you feel, you can literally be more efficient with your day. You can be more productive. And they talk about the lunar phases. So if you are done with your cycle or you don't ovulate for whatever reason because of hormonal imbalance or whatnot, so it just looks at how you can help be in tune with yourself so you can get the most out of your day and being productive and not feeling like you are like a hamster, like running on the wheel and getting nowhere fast. So that is another one. I feel like there's so much I want to share, but so when we were getting some questions in as far as like what else you can be eating, things like coconut oil, avocados, grass-fed butter, grass-fed meats, wild-caught salmon, stuff like that have got the different size chains of fatty acids. Those are so important to keeping your hormones on track and on board. And these fats, that they're essential building blocks to make other hormones. And Lord knows we need it, especially during times of stress, because your body's just going to burn through so much of this stuff. Yes, there's some supplements you can use. Ashwagandha is a great adaptogenic herb. It can come in liquid form, in capsule form. And whether you're overproducing stress hormone, underproducing, I mean, this is just kind of a good one in general. It helps us to combat stress. It supports thyroid and regulating blood sugar and different things like that. I told you about magnesium, making sure your gut is online too. Probiotics can be very beneficial. If we have some food intolerances, food sensitivities, digestive enzyme support is great because, again, as we get older, not only are we not making hydrochloric acid like we used to, but our digestive enzymes go down as well. So it seems like, now I can't eat raw stuff anymore. It's all got to be cooked or whatever it is. So you want to take note, of how you feel with certain things and then just be able to readjust along the way. So we covered a lot of stuff, and I've often thought about like breaking some of these conditions down and doing like mini webinars. I would love to hear from you. So please just add things to the chat. Let me know what resonated. Let me know what questions you have. And of course, let us know how we can help support you in the phase that you're in or a phase that you're about to enter, because it's horrible to do this alone. You should never feel like you're on an island. I mean, I felt like that, for years back in the day. And it's tough. And you don't want to play doctor and patient to yourself. We can help hook you up with the resources, but more importantly, we need to see where you are in present time and what it will take to help support you live your best life. So we look forward to helping you and your family, and we look forward to just connecting. Take care, guys.